What's going on? Welcome to another episode of Off the Schneid. It's your boy Cody coming back for another rookie mock draft. A little bit different than last year's. I added some stats, obviously return yards, added rushing attempts, receptions, all that kind of stuff. Just gives you a better overall picture of their total value, both to their real life team and then in fantasy for fantasy purposes, especially if your leagues credit return yards and stuff like that, which mine do. So I want to shout out to those guys as well. Similar to last year, we're going to count down from the top. So round 3, pick 12, down to round 3, pick 1, etc. So we'll kick it off with Cade Johnson. Landed with the Seahawks, undrafted free agent. I'm not really sure why he didn't get drafted. I mean, FCS player program, I get it, out of South Dakota State, but set all kinds of records there. 17 touchdown receptions in 2018. Single season return yards, 839 in 2017. So he's got some skills. Landed in a great spot. So, here's the thing with, this is all going to kind of center around the D'Wayne Eskridge pick, which I hated. If you go and watch my my draft grades episode, I hated the Seahawks draft. I really didn't like it, outside of Stone Forsythe, who they got in like the 6th round. But picking D'Wayne Eskridge there doesn't make a lot of sense. To me, there's not a big difference between D'Wayne Eskridge and Cade Johnson. There's not a huge difference for me. Obviously, I think that D'Wayne Eskridge will have more opportunities to succeed for this team, being, 2nd round pick, Cade Johnson, undrafted free agent. But I think that there's room for Cade Johnson to carve out a role on this team this year and potentially moving forward. As you can see, I have, 12 receptions, 113 yards and a touchdown. Not a big deal there. They still got Freddie Swain. D'Wayne Eskridge obviously comes in to probably play a slot. And then if they do get Julio Jones, that's going to change a lot of things. And, maybe it pushes Cade Johnson from even making this team. So we'll see. But it's the last pick, 36th overall in this rookie mock draft. So where I see the most value would probably be as a returner. And you might be telling me, hey, kick return yards, set records, all kinds of stuff like that in college. Why is he not their primary return guy? And I get that. And that's kind of where I was leaning at with him. But they got a guy named DJ Reed, corner, plays a little nickel corner. But they've got a couple other guys that do the same thing. Quandre Diggs, Amadi. So, and DJ Reed. So he's not going to play a crazy amount on defense, and where his value will lie most for the Seahawks is going to be on special teams as a kick and punt returner. Returned 5 kicks last year. He got kind of a late start. He only played 10 games. 27.4 average yards, 27.4 yard average. That's pretty impressive. I'm sure it's a small sample size, but that's pretty impressive. 10 punt returns for 7.8 average. That's pretty good. David Moore was their other punt returner. 12 times he returned punts, 9.3 average. So I think there's room for him to carve out a role, both as a punt and kick returner. Obviously, I don't think he returned a ton of punts in college, but that can translate. He can learn. And again, if DJ Reed is their primary guy, you got a secondary option in Cade Johnson should any injuries occur. Again, on offense as well, I don't see a crazy difference between D'Wayne Eskridge and Cade Johnson in the slot. So, if injuries happen, I think he can slide in and play offense. And again, that depends on if they get Julio Jones. So there's your last pick in the mock draft. Stats are there. 3.12 Cade Johnson. Let's move on to the next pick. So real life, I don't mind the pick for the Chargers on Josh Palmer. I don't hate it. I just, like, fantasy wise, I just don't see it. I just don't see it happening for the guy. At least not this season. We'll see what happens with Mike Williams, but I fully expect them to re-sign him and keep him with the team. Hunter Henry's gone, but Jared Cook comes in. I think Austin Eckler, if fully healthy all season, will gobble up a bunch more production in the passing game. I quite like Jalen Guyton and Tyron Johnson in this offense. I think KJ Hill, I think Joe Reed can take a bit of a step forward. I just don't think that opportunity for production is going to really be there for Josh Palmer. So I really don't think he's going to be drafted or ownable at all. Getting down to the end of the draft here, it was tough to find guys that even fit in here. Jacob Harris and Simi Fehoko were the two guys, the honorable mentions, if you will. They could have easily slotted in with similar production that I see for Josh Palmer. Maybe you can throw on another touchdown or so, but I really don't see a ton of opportunity for him, and I don't think he'll be drafted. So he's a guy to keep an eye on for the future. Maybe in a super deep dynasty league you can grab him, but redrafts, not worth a look. And even low like shorter roster dynasty teams, not worth a look either. So keep your eye on Josh Palmer, but I just don't see the production being there this year for him. So let's move on. This was a pick for the Steelers that I really didn't like. Just didn't make tons of sense to me. With Eric Ebron already being there and being having a prominent role in this offense already, I just didn't like this pick. It didn't make sense. Offensive line would have made a ton more sense considering Najee Harris, obviously. So I really didn't like this pick. Tight end, rookie tight ends just don't really, produce at an extremely high clip in their rookie year. It just doesn't happen very often. Kyle Pitts, we'll see what I project for him. Obviously, he's a little bit different, but I'm looking at Pat Freiermuth very similar to Cole Kmet last year, another second round pick, another guy who was kind of the tight end too on a team that, throws the ball a fair amount, but, there's not a crazy amount of completions and it's not going downfield a ton. It's a very, very similar situation in my opinion. So I projected a fairly similar stat line. So I don't see him being rosterable pretty much at all. I guess you could take a flyer on him in a dynasty league. I won't be looking at him in dynasty personally because it might take like 3 years before you get any return on your investment there. And for the leagues I'm in, I can't stash a guy that long. That's kind of just where it's at. So I don't think he's ownable in redraft leagues. Again, this year in dynasty leagues, I'm not looking at him. I think his real life value is going to be much more valuable than his fantasy value. So I think it's safe to leave him off your draft board. But for dynasty leagues, you can bump him up a little bit. So let me know what you think in the comments. But there you go. There's the breakdown there for Pat Freiermuth. All right, so here's one of the more interesting picks, obviously, in players in fantasy, in real life this year. Davis Mills, the Texans. This is a guy, third round pick. I think he was the second or third pick of the third round. First pick for the Texans. I think that if he went back to Stanford, there's quite a bit of potential that he would be, a top 5 pick next year in next year's draft. So going off of that value or going off of that, thought process, the Texans got extremely good value there. Do I think he starts week 1? No, absolutely not. I do not think that he starts week 1. I think Tyrod Taylor is there to start as long as, he's healthy and, the season doesn't quite get away from them. Do I think the season gets away from the Texans? Probably. If who knows what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson here. I'm not here to speculate on what's going on with Deshaun Watson. We'll see what happens, and we'll see if he plays or how many games he plays, whatever it is. If he doesn't play at all, if Deshaun Watson doesn't play at all, Tyrod Taylor will start the season QB1. Jeff Driscoll's still there, and then you got Davis Mills. So at what point do you bring in Davis Mills? Again, does not start week 1 for sure. So it kind of depends on when the season gets away from the Texans and how ready they feel Davis Mills is to step in and start an NFL game. I've projected for, 4, 5, 6 type of games. I think he absolutely gets in this season. I think he definitely does start games. It's just a matter of when and how many is kind of where I'm at with it. Either way, unless he does start, 10 plus games, I don't think he's going to be ownable on most, he'll be ownable on super deep leagues, but he's not going to be starting. He's not going to be starting for any fantasy team. If you have to start Davis Mills at any point, you're probably losing that week. But, for dynasty leagues, I think that there's definitely some value there. Absolutely. Because I don't think that Deshaun Watson's going to be back with this team probably at all. That's why I'm not projecting, him to play this year. whether it's for the Texans or any NFL team. So I think his days are done in Houston regardless. So that basically makes Davis Mills the quarterback of the future for the Texans, ipso facto. So here we are. We'll see how many games he gets in this year. I think for Dynasty, you can bump him up for sure. And he might be worth a flyer depending on how the preseason goes. I really do think that Davis Mills is kind of coming into his own, which is why I think he would produce to that stature next year if he went back to Stanford. So, I think that he can earn that franchise quarterback type of a label this year. With stats like that, I still think that's a lot to, be happy about and look forward to as a franchise. 6'4", 220, ran a 4.58. 4.6 roughly. That's pretty solid. That's pretty solid for an NFL quarterback. All the measurables are there. He's got the pedigree, smart guy, quarterback school when they come out that way. So I do like Davis Mills, and I think there's a lot of potential, especially moving forward. But we'll see how much he plays this year. So there you go. Let me know what you think in the comments on Davis Mills. That's it. He's going to be a player for everybody to kind of keep their eye on and see how it all shakes out in the quarterback room in Houston. So let me know what you think, and let's move on to the next pick. Next up, we got the fastest guy in the draft, and a guy that I think could potentially move up this list quite a bit depending on what happens throughout the season. I think that there is a potential for a Cleveland Brown wide receiver to really excel in this offense this season. Personally, I think that that's most likely going to be Rashard Higgins and or Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think Odell Beckham Jr. is going to have a tough time coming back from that injury, torn ACL on the same leg. I've been saying it for a long time, and if you watch my show a lot, you'll know that I have a lot of hesitation towards Odell Beckham Jr. this year, and that's nothing to do with his work ethic or I don't like his attitude or anything stupid like that. That is not it at all. He broke that leg viciously, and for him to come back and have a 1,000-yard season after breaking his leg like that is extremely impressive in itself, extremely. And then for him to tear his ACL on that same leg is just extremely unfortunate. And, my overall thesis about OBJ is that we lost out on potentially one of the best wide receivers to kind of ever play the game, maybe. He had that potential. It's just extremely difficult to come back after a broken leg like that, let alone tearing this, the ACL in that same leg. So I think that there's room for a wide receiver in this offense to really step up and excel. I don't think it's going to be Anthony Schwartz, but the potential is there. Fastest guy in the draft, like I said, and it's not like he's a small guy, 6 foot, 185. He's not Tutu Atwell. Like he can take a bit of a pounding. We'll see how he fits in as far as the return game is concerned. He didn't do it a ton in college, but I think that that's going to be kind of where he has to find a role with this offense and this team. They do still have, obviously, Donovan Peoples-Jones and then D'Ernest Johnson were the two kick returners last year. If Peoples-Jones takes a step forward in the offense, I think he might take a bit of a backseat in the return game, which would give Anthony Schwartz some room to get some reps there. So I have him kind of splitting. I do think D'Ernest Johnson still gets some reps there. Same with the punt game. I've got him getting a couple, but I don't think he's going to be able to learn the position quickly enough to just take over in that. Being the primary punt returner. Kick returns are a little bit easier, it's a little easier to just catch and run type of a thing than it is in the punt game, in my opinion. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I don't think so. So I think it'd be much easier for him to learn how to return kicks than it would be to return punts, and to get comfortable at the NFL level when there's other guys on the roster that have that experience and are, not quite as fast, but they're pretty quick. They also drafted Demetric Felton, who's there to potentially, steal some of those reps. Jojo Natson's still there. Like I said, D'Ernest Johnson, who is pretty much definitely going to be making this team as the running back 3 type of thing. And then kicks and punt return type of a guy. So I don't think that there's like a super clear path for stats, an opportunity for Anthony Schwartz, but he can do things that other guys on this team can't quite do. So, he's worth a flyer late round type of thing. But I think some of those other guys, like I said, Peoples-Jones and Higgins will be the guys that you target in redraft leagues, even dynasty type of thing. But he's definitely got to keep your eye on, and we'll see how it pans out in the preseason for the Browns. But there you go. Let's move on to the next pick. Next up, we got Kene Nwangwu from Minnesota. Bit of a surprise pick in the 4th round. I didn't... If you go watch the draft grade I gave this, it was a red grade. I didn't really love it, but there was a bit of a caveat to it. I don't mind it because, if you're looking at the stat line that I have here for him, he's probably going to be Pro Bowl return guy. So for the NFC, at least push for a Pro Bowl spot there. So that's why I have him so high in this draft, in this mock draft type of thing. If your league does, give points for return yards, he's going to be borderline ownable, if I'm being honest. Depends on how deep your league is and how many points you get for return yards and all that kind of thing. But I think there's a potential that he could be ownable, depending on how it works out with the running back situation with him on offense. I think there's a strong potential that he does take over that RB3 spot from Amir Abdullah and returning as well. Abdullah was their primary kick returner, him and KJ Osborne, and KJ Osborne just ain't it. So that's pretty much... He's going to lose all of those returns, I think, KJ Osborne, as well as the punt returns. Him and Chad Beebe split there. So realistically, I think it's very possible that Nwangwu can just take all of those kick returns as well as poach some of the punt return action there. He didn't do that in college, so he's got to kind of learn. But 4.29 speed, fresh legs, all that kind of thing, track star type of a guy. I think you just kind of mold him out and get him some reps there and have him just be your primary return guy and help out on offense as well here and there type of a thing. In all of these stat projections, I'm not predicting injury to the upper guys, to the starters. I'm not predicting injury, even though the way Dalvin Cook plays, the way he runs the ball, I don't think he's played a full season, maybe one. He missed 2 games last year, so. There is potential for him to get some carries on offense. With that speed, you kind of just want to get the ball in his hand sometimes, especially obviously in the kick return game, and just let him run wild. So I think there's potentially some room, like I said, and if there is injury to a Dalvin Cook or an Alexander Mattison, I think you can bump Nwangwu up even more, and then he will definitely be ownable if he's returning punts and kicks and playing a little more on offense type of a thing. So I really like the guy. I like the fit. I like that. I know that they reached. That's why I didn't love the pick, but I like the pick for the team, if that makes any sense to you. So it should be good. And again, borderline ownable. Obviously, you have to be in a return yard league type of thing, but he should be ownable. And I think there's a potential, as long as he does, get that opportunity. I think there's potential that he makes the Pro Bowl as a return guy for the Vikings this year. So there you go. Let's move on to the next pick. Sure, some of you are a little surprised right now looking at the stat line that I gave Mac Jones. Obviously, I have him going ahead of Davis Mills, who I'm projecting to have better stat line type of a thing. I just think that the reason why is obviously Mac Jones drafted first round quarterback. He's going to get in at some point. Might be the last game of the year. Might play earlier. Might start week 1. I'm not sure. But if he does get in, there's much more potential for Matt Jones to do, better, bigger things than Davis Mills. The team is obviously just an extreme amount better. The Patriots are extremely better than the Texans. So the potential is there for Mac Jones to really succeed if he gets a shot. Now, do I think Mac Jones gets that shot? I do think he starts at some point, but I do think that this could very much be a Patrick Mahomes type of a situation where he comes in. It's 17 games now this year, obviously. So maybe he starts 2 games, and that's kind of what I projected is maybe 2 in a bit type of game, something like that, without injury. I do think that Cam Newton starts the season as a quarterback for the for the New England Patriots. I absolutely think he starts week 1, and I absolutely think that he starts until the season maybe gets away from the Patriots. I don't think that really happens. I think that the Patriots are in a really good spot. That defense is really, 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 really good. And I think if they just run the ball, control the clock, they can win a lot of games. So you're not going to take out, you're not going to bench Cam Newton just to start Mac Jones when you're winning. It's just not going to happen. They're way too different of quarterbacks as well. That's a big reason why. You're not going to go from a Cam Newton style offense to a Mac Jones style offense unless something's going wrong. And maybe that does happen. Maybe that does happen, but I just don't see it. I think Cam Newton plays pretty much the whole season for the Patriots. He will be gone after this season, and then it just becomes Mac Jones's team. Dynasty, he's obviously like fairly high up there with, a wasted season kind of a thing, like a red shirt season. If you do take him, you're not taking him for this year, you're taking him for next year and down the road. So that's kind of why, because if there is an injury to Cam, like I said, the potential for Mac Jones is an extremely amount higher than a Davis Mills. There you go. Let me know what you think in the comments. Halfway through the 3rd round type of thing. Definitely a ton of value in Dynasty. Not a ton in redrafts, in my opinion. He'll be a waiver wire guy. Obviously, a huge priority waiver wire guy if Cam Newton gets hurt. So let me know what you think in the comments. Let's move on to the next pick. So here's a very interesting player come fantasy season and just football season this year for the 49ers. I think obviously you can probably tell by my stat projection there. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the starter in San Francisco until, or as he stays healthy, basically. And as long as the 49ers continue to win, I think he continues to play quarterback for that team. And I think when healthy, if the whole team is healthy, the 49ers are a very good football team and they can win a lot of ball games. So I mean, it's rare that your third overall quarterback is not, starting week 1 or by like week 4 type of thing, week 6 maybe sort of a thing. But I just really do think that the Niners are playing the long game here. I think if they wanted a more, start week 1 ready type of a quarterback, I think Mac Jones is that guy. I think that they drafted on ceiling, which is fine. I mean, if you're drafting a guy 3rd overall, you don't want to draft a guy that, you know what he's going to be, which I think that's Mac Jones. You know what he's going to be. He's safe, at least, relatively closely. You could project to what he could do. I think with Trey Lance, there's a lot more, boom or bust potential. And obviously they think that there's going to be more boom than bust, but I just don't think that he's ready to start NFL football games right now. I just don't. I've said that since day 1 about Trey Lance. Not that I think that there's anything wrong with selecting him 3rd overall. I just think that, he's not going to be the guy to come in and start week 1. I really just don't think so. There's obviously 100% of potential for that happening. And if that does happen, skyrocket Trey Lance up this board. He becomes, right there with Justin Fields probably for me. If he does play even 14 games, even 12 games, he skyrockets up this list. I just am not sure that happens as long as the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo stay healthy and they continue to win ball games, which I do expect. So there you go. Let me know what you think in the comments on that one. Obviously, regardless of how it shakes down, quarterbacks, as long, unless you're in I personally hate super flex leagues. I absolutely despise them. But if you are in a super flex league, then, you can bump them up. Other than super flex leagues, quarterbacks are not taken as high as skill position players. So hence why I have Trey Lance so low on this list. Again, if he plays and starts, 12 plus games, skyrockets up this list. I just don't expect that to happen. So let me know what you think in the comments. We'll move on to the next pick. Next up, we got Chuba Hubbard, a kid from just a couple hours up the road from me in Edmonton, Alberta. I definitely like the player a lot. There's a lot to like about Chuba Hubbard. 6 feet tall, 210, around a sub 4.5, 2,000-yard runner 2 seasons ago with the Cowboys of Oklahoma State. Falls into a pretty good situation in Carolina where he becomes the unquestioned, in my opinion, RB2 on this team. And he'll get this stat line projection here is based on a completely healthy Christian McCaffrey for all 17 games. That's why it's a little bit conservative. And it's not that I just think that with the way that they use, and it might change because this is more or less, I mean, not really couple games last year, but it's more or less the first season that Joe Brady has had Christian McCaffrey in his offense full time. So we'll see, and I think there is some room for a little bit of a better stat line for Chuba Hubbard, but we'll see it, and it depends on Christian McCaffrey's health, absolutely, and it depends on how they want to run the offense. They throw the ball a lot. Chuba Hubbard's not a big pass catcher. I'm not exactly sure how he is on third downs and pass protection, but I think that Christian McCaffrey is going to be their third down running back regardless. So if there is an injury to Christian McCaffrey, you could obviously bump him up the board. I don't think there's a ton of dynasty value for him, given the contract that Christian McCaffrey has with the Panthers, unless he comes off the team somehow. Then reassess that if it happens, type of a thing, right? So again, projecting for a fully healthy Christian McCaffrey, 2,000-yard runner, like I said a couple years ago, had some personal issues with the Cowboys and the program in Oklahoma State last year, which I'm sure it wasn't a good situation, but it allowed him to take a less of a beating, which I like. I don't particularly love running backs that have a massive workload in college. He had 328 carries in 2019 when he ran for almost 2,100 yards, 21 touchdowns. It was a massive season. I think he was like 8th or something like that in Heisman voting that year, something like that, in the top 10, which he should have been, absolutely. But, again, those personal issues that he had with the team, allowed him to take a less of a beating and to have less carries and to stay a little fresher, because no matter how you cut it, running backs that take a pounding in college, it just does not translate into having an extremely long and productive NFL career. So I would like that for Chuba Hubbard. Obviously, being a Canadian kid, I like him that much more, but we'll see. And again, it depends on the contract and availability of Christian McCaffrey. But either way, RB2 in Carolina 100%. Let me know how you feel about Chuba Hubbard in the comments, and we'll move on to the next pick. So as I said in the Mac Jones kind of projection there and breakdown, I think that the Patriots are probably going to run the ball a fair bit. Again, like I said, it's a different style offense between Cam Newton and Mac Jones. So I think that they'll be chain movers, essentially, between, it'll be a bit of a more three-headed, I suppose, backfield. Four-headed backfield, I think, to be honest. Sony Michel, Ramondre Stevenson, obviously, Damian Harris and James White all there. I think they'll all eat just as much as they did last year, type of thing. Rex Burkhead's obviously gone. JJ Taylor, I'm not sure if he's even on. I think he is on the roster still, but I don't think that he gets basically any reps now. I think that this is a reasonable stat line for Ramondre Stevenson. I think that Sony Michel and Damian Harris both had some health issues last year, and I think that Stevenson can step in and fill in for either of those guys. I would give him more of a touchdown total, 100%. If Mac Jones is playing, he gets a higher touchdown total. 6 foot, 230, big body back. I think he was kind of just coming into his own at Oklahoma last year. Only played 6 games in an abbreviated season, averaged over 100 yards a game and a touchdown. So I think that he could step in and kind of be that like bell cow pound between the tackles type of a guy. But then come goal line, Cam Newton's going to vulture, touchdowns from any running back on this team. So basically that makes him not really ownable, if I'm being honest. And then the competition for carries, he's not going to be ownable in my opinion. Maybe in Dynasty you could give him a look, but I don't personally. I do like him. I like him as a player. And again, so maybe next year with Mac Jones under center, boost up that touchdown total for him. And, he might be a startable type of a guy, a bye-week fill-in flyer, flex guy, whatever you want to call it next season, given that potential 4 touchdowns. But we'll see how it shakes down. Either way, I don't think he's ownable this year. Do like the player, and the Patriots are a good-looking team, moving the chains, pushing the ball down the field, just punishing defenses, basically, I think is what their game is going to be. Run the ball, tight ends, play action, all that kind of stuff. Should be an interesting team this year, but let me know what you think in the comments for Rhamondre Stevenson, and let's move on. With the second pick in the third round, we got Tutu Atwell of the Rams. Second round pick. I didn't really love it at the time. I still don't particularly love it. But, it is what it is. They've now got 5 wide receivers that can do a lot of similar things, with Djax coming in as well. Van Jefferson will take a step forward in his second season. Obviously, Kupp and Woods are still there. Fast, small, ran a 4.3. 5'7", basically, 160 pounds, whatever it is. It's going to be tough to see him get on the field a crazy amount. Van Jefferson was a second round pick last year as well, and his stat line wasn't incredible. 19 catches, 220 yards, and a touchdown. With Djax coming in as well, Tyler Higbee's still there. I think they'll run the ball a fair amount again. So, even with Matt Stafford, but I do think Matt Stafford's stats will be greater than Jared Goff's. 3,900 yards, Goff threw 420 touchdowns. I think that Matt Stafford absolutely eclipses those totals, which should bump up Tutu Atwell a little bit. I don't think that he's extremely faster than Van Jefferson, so or even Djax for that matter. So where does he just fit in? I think he fits in the slot, and again, swings, runs the ball a little bit, get the ball in his hand. It's going to be tough to tackle him. Yeah, he's small, but that's also why it's going to be tough to tackle the guy. 5'7", 155. He's just going to be a little water bug out there running around. And again, like I just said, get the ball in his hands. I do think there'll be some space for him in the return game, which, again, going back to if you're in a league that values return yards, he's going to be a guy you're going to want to look at. And, he's going to be a super late round pick, or, very cheap in an auction draft type of thing. But if he takes over as the primary punt return and kick return guy, plus plays on offense, then he's definitely going to be ownable. At least he's definitely going to be on rosters. Depends on how deep your leagues are, obviously. But in my league, he'll probably be ownable at some points in the season. Not all season, maybe, picking them up here and there, and, spot start maybe on a bye week type of thing. But either way, and with that return yard kind of value, we'll see who makes the team, basically. They do, if Simba Webster still is on this roster, he's going to gobble up some of those return and punt return yards and opportunities. So, and even potentially, Van Jefferson might gobble up a couple of those. So it's hard to say who's going to be the primary, or if they share, that kind of a thing. So you just keep your eyes on it. If he becomes the primary punt and kick returner and plays even a little on offense, I think that there's definitely going to be value there for him. That's why I have him kind of so high. I wouldn't call it super high, but I basically looked at Van Jefferson's stats and kind of use that as a benchmark, added a bit on top, obviously, and I think he offers a little more in the return game. So that's kind of where I went with it. With the addition of Stafford, I think that boosts his stats a little bit. I think it would have done the same thing for Van Jefferson if that trade had happened last year. So there you go. Let me know what you think of the comments on this one. I think there's room for him. There's room for a lot of these guys, but for Tutu Atwell, there's definitely room being a second round pick, obviously. But there you go. There it is on Tutu Atwell. Let's move on to the next pick. This is one of those love the player, don't love the landing spot type of a thing with Dyami Brown from North Carolina. Had a very good college season last year and the year before, back-to-back 1,000-yard receiver for the Tar Heels. An impressive stat, he had 20-plus yard average in both years per catch type of thing. So, in 20 total touchdowns in those 2 years. So that's a pretty amazing average, 1,000 yards, basically 53 catches, 1,000 plus yards and 10 touchdowns with 20 yards per catch. That's pretty impressive. I definitely like the guy. I really, really do. Ran a 4.54, over 6 foot, pushing 200 pounds, 6'1", 190, something like that. I love the player. Love the player. It's just, there's a lot of guys on this Washington football team that can do a lot of the same things. And I don't usually love, and I mean, maybe he's the best of them, besides Terry McLaurin, but, maybe he's the best of them. I don't think so with Curtis Samuel coming in now. They do still have Cam Sims, Antonio Gandy Golden, Adam Humphries comes in, Steven Sims is still there, Isaiah Wright. I just don't think, coupled with a high production tight end in Logan Thomas and a lot of dump offs to the running backs, I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to come in and like change this offense really at all, if I'm being honest. So I just don't think that there's going to be a ton of opportunity for production for Dyami Brown, kind of no matter what. You know what I mean? Like no matter what happens. And if there's an injury or something to Ryan Fitzpatrick, then I think you can maybe peel back these stats even a little bit. It's a weird situation in Washington, and I love the player, didn't love the fit. He probably does start in 3 wide receiver sets. I think it becomes Dyami Brown, Terry McLaurin, and Curtis Samuel in 3 wide receiver sets. But I just don't think there's enough opportunity for, realistically anyone to eat that much beyond, I don't even see too much of a boost in production for Terry McLaurin, if any. I think that, basically you can go down the roster, keep more or less the stat lines all similar, and then you got to add in a guy like Dyami Brown. So it's hard to see where it's going to happen for him. But you never know. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just don't see the opportunity to be there for him. Maybe in Dynasty you can move him up. Depends on what happens at the quarterback position for the football team. I've been screaming for Gardner Minshew. Obviously you'd have to make a trade for him, and I'm not sure that the Jags would even want to do that. Like for anything, why would you? But if you throw a good enough offer at him, I'm sure they're absolutely gonna think about it. 4th round pick or something for Gardner Minshew, I think that's worth it. He could be the quarterback of the future for the football team. But either way, I digress. It is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comments. Love Dyami Brown. Just it's going to be tough for him to produce like he did in college. So we'll move on to the next selection, the first selection in the 2nd round. Chiefs are an interesting team this season. Their offensive line is probably going to be the best in the league. They've sunk a ton of capital, draft and free agent capital in bolstering that line, which was basically the difference between the Chiefs and the Super Bowl last year. So they add another weapon, which they needed. They lost Sammy Watkins, obviously. They needed another weapon and got a very, very good one, in my opinion, in the 5th round. I do not think that Cornell Powell should have been a 5th round pick. I think, 4th would have been great value. 3rd wouldn't have been crazy, I don't think. Another Clemson wide receiver. That school's just churning out wide receivers like they're going out of style, serviceable, startable, playable wide receivers at the NFL level. Ran a 4.4 flat, 6 foot, 200 pounds, everything you like. I think that it's just going to be interesting to see how that Sammy Watkins production gets doled out to everybody else. Mecole Hardman might take a bit of a step forward. Obviously, you have Tyreek and Kelsey. Don't really need to talk about those guys. They're going to do what they're going to do, and probably command at least half between the two of them, half of Patrick Mahomes' production. So the other half it gets doled out as it will type of thing. Mecole Hardman's obviously your field stretcher. I think Demarcus Robinson has an opportunity to take a large step forward this season. We'll see if he takes, if he goes through that door and if he takes advantage of it. If not, Cornell Powell will be the guy to do that. So another interesting guy on this offense to see what he's going to do, Byron Pringle, who's been around for a couple seasons, made some plays here and there. He's been a guy that can be serviceable when called upon, and he can make plays. So it's going to be interesting. I think that there's definitely potential for a boost in production here for Cornell Powell. Absolutely, I could see him probably eclipsing that 500-yard mark. Maybe adding another touchdown, couple more catches, type of thing. So I think there is room to improve on these numbers. It just depends on if guys take advantage of the situation that's in front of them, i.e. Demarcus Robinson. Basically, he's going to be the guy that's going to decide where Cornell Powell is going to fall in the pecking order on this team, in my opinion. So yeah, there you go. Let me know what you think in the comments on that one. It's a bit of a mouthful for the Chiefs. I think they win the Super Bowl. I really, really do. I think that they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. I just think they've done too much on the offensive line. They've helped out the defense. They've done some sneaky things, which I'll talk about in my breakdown of the Chiefs in a little bit here. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. That's what I've got projected for Cornell Powell. I think you can bump it up a little bit just on potential. Obviously, when you have a quarterback and a team and an offense of this caliber, you can bump them up a little bit just based on potential and like potential ceiling, right? So again, let me know what you think in the comments, and let's move on to the next pick. So I definitely didn't like the drafting of D'Wayne Eskridge for the Seahawks. Fantasy is obviously quite a bit different for their value to the team type of a thing. I thought that there was tons of better options for the real life Seattle Seahawks. Fantasy wise, there's definitely going to be room for D'Wayne Eskridge, absolutely. Depending on if they get Julio Jones, I mean, it would just eat into a little bit of his offensive production, but I still think those return opportunities are going to be there. It's going to depend on what happens with DJ Reed, Cade Johnson, and D'Wayne Eskridge. And usually, from going off of last year, seems to be kind of a hot hand type of a thing. They definitely spread out the returns in the kick return game and the punt return game. So no guy kind of dominated. So I do think that there's room for two of, Cade Johnson, D'Wayne Eskridge, and DJ Reed. So I personally think that DJ Reed might be that guy, but I'm predicting a little bit of a boost. I mean, obviously in the return game there's quite a bit of a boost for D'Wayne Eskridge, but we'll see how it all shakes out. Either way, I think he's going to obviously have more opportunity than Cade Johnson on offense with this team. Likely playing the slot, but there's a guy that I think is being overlooked in this offense quite a bit, and that's Freddie Swain. Oh man, drawing a blank here. With David Moore moving on, there's obviously going to be some opportunities, some catches, some targets, that kind of a thing. I think a lot of that can go to Freddie Swain. Obviously, some of it will go to D'Wayne Eskridge and potentially Cade Johnson as well. Obviously, if they get Julio, this whole thing gets changed around a little bit, and you can not quite throw it in the garbage, but it'll definitely change things. But I think Freddie Swain is a guy that can eat up a fair amount of that production. So I do kind of feel like D'Wayne Eskridge and or Cade Johnson will kind of split the kind of scraps, if you will, almost. 29 receptions, 396 yards. That's a reasonable year. Again, if you're in a return yard league, that's going to be at least rosterable and potentially, spot starting on bye weeks type of a thing. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of time between now and then, and I said it when I talked about Cade Johnson. I don't see an extreme difference between Cade Johnson and D'Wayne Eskridge. Obviously, you couldn't plan for Cade Johnson going undrafted when you're drafting D'Wayne Eskridge in the second round. I think it was an extreme surprise that he did go undrafted. I thought he's worth at least a 5th round pick, 6th, 7th round. I don't know why nobody takes a shot on him, but either way, when you're drafting D'Wayne Eskridge, you're not expecting Cade Johnson to go undrafted and you'd be able to just scoop him up kind of for free without any draft capital being used. So, I mean, which makes the drafting of D'Wayne Eskridge that much worse. But either way, here we are. There's the stat projection. Let me know what you think in the comments. There's still a lot to shake out with this Seahawks team and offense especially. But right now, that's kind of what I'm projecting, which puts him at a late second round pick in a rookie draft type of a thing. So let me know what you think in the comments, and let's move on. Like all the Houston Texans rookies and team in general, I think that it remains to be seen kind of what it's going to look like for that team. It's going to be a weird season for the Texans. It's kind of going to be a wash of a season, if I'm being honest, for the Texans. It's not going to it's just get through the season. Just get through the season and move on to next year. Hopefully Davis Mills is your guy moving forward, and you got a guy like Nico Collins who could be your wide receiver one of the future. I really like Nico Collins, 6'4", 215, ran a 4.43, sat out last year. I think that if Deshaun Watson were the quarterback, unquestioned, he's playing every game this year, I would probably at the very least double this stat line for Nico Collins. if that were the case. Pretty close, maybe not quite, but I would potentially double this stat line. So I think that he could be, like, again, if Deshaun Watson were playing, I would look at him like a Chase Claypool last year. How I treated him last year and how I looked at him. That's how I would look at Nico Collins right now. But that's not the case. So at least I don't think that's going to be the case. So with Tyrod Taylor, Jeff Driscoll, and potentially Davis Mills throwing you the ball, you got to curb your enthusiasm a little bit with Brandon Cook still there, Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb struggled to stay healthy a little bit, as well as Kiki Cutie. And then Isaiah Coulter's still there. Chris Conley comes in. Chris Moore comes in. But, realistically, I think that Nico Collins could be between him and Brandon Cooks, that's a pretty deadly combination for pretty much any quarterback. Brandon Cooks is still an extremely solid wide receiver. He's very, very underrated still, in my opinion. And moving forward, I think if you have those two guys, you're gonna be fairly satisfied, with your wide receiver room, with Randall Cobb in there as well. So yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate situation for basically the Houston Texans altogether, but Nico Collins especially. So we'll see what happens moving forward. I think Dynasty, you could bump him up, because if Davis Mills is that guy, or if their first overall next season they draft a quarterback, he's going to be, I think that he's going to be a very, very good wide receiver. I really think that he's going to be a good one. Not saying he's going to be like some Pro Bowl or perennial Pro Bowl or 1,000-yard receiver every year type of thing, but I think he will be serviceable, and I think he will be ownable. Just potentially not this year is kind of where I'm at. So you might have to, like I said, with Davis Mills and a couple other guys, it might be a red shirt type of a year, Mac Jones type of a thing, red shirt type of a season in his rookie year. But moving forward, I definitely like the potential for Nico Collins. So keep your eyes out for him. Let's move on to the next pick. If you're looking for another James Robinson this year, I think the best option for that to kind of come to fruition is Javian Hawkins for the Falcons. Pretty much all the running back carries from the Falcons team last year have opened up. There's about 360 carries that are opened up from Todd Gurley, Brian Hill, and Ito Smith, all no longer with the team. Obviously, they brought in Mike Davis to potentially be that bell cow. He's never been a bell cow back, although he did play, somewhat that role last year for the Panthers, obviously with the injury to Christian McCaffrey. They do have Quadri Olison, who, very, very different, completely different running back than Javian Hawkins, big body back type of a guy, goal line carry maybe type of a guy. But I don't know how he went undrafted, if I'm being honest. I think a guy like Javian Hawkins, again, similar to Cade Johnson, 5th round pick, 6th, 7th at least. His production was pretty impressive at Louisville. It's not like he's an FCS running back. It's the ACC. It's not the, top of the line, conference in college football, but it's not the bottom of the barrel either. There's some good teams in the ACC, and his production was very, very impressive in my opinion. Around a 4.54, yeah, he's a little bit of a smaller guy, 5'8", basically 5'9", just about 200 pounds type of a thing. He's not an extremely small guy either, if we're talking about running backs. So and again, with the potential is there. The potential. It's similar to Jacksonville. They had no clear-cut bell cow, this is our guy, and if you want to call Mike Davis that, sure, but I just don't particularly think, I do think, again, if you look at the stat line here, I do think that Mike Davis is the number one running back, but I do think that there's absolutely some opportunity for Javian Hawkins to succeed and get some reps and get some touches. And I think that there's a very good potential that he exceeds this stat line that I've given him, especially with the carries. I think that, 200 roughly for Mike Davis, maybe a little more, 220 tops for Mike Davis carries if he's fully healthy all season. I think that there's potential for, 50 to 80 carries for Javian Hawkins, and potentially more. There's a potential that he just comes into the season, takes a stranglehold on that running back job, and they just can't keep him off the field. That's basically what James Robinson did. They just, they gave him an opportunity. He succeeded, and you just can't take it away, basically. You're a better team with him on the field, and that's the potential for Javian Hawkins. So I like him a lot. I think that he could be, a steal type of a guy. He could be the RB1 by the time the season's over for Atlanta. I think that there's still going to be a bit of a pass first type of a team. Remains to be seen what happens with Julio Jones. Sounds like he's probably going to be traded. Kyle Pitts comes in. And then obviously Arthur Smith coming in is going to change things a little bit. So it's really hard to project this team, as a whole, especially at the running back position, where it's a completely new roster, new room type of a thing, and new coaching staff, like I just said. So it's interesting, but I think that he's absolutely worth a late round flyer. Absolutely. And dynasty stuff for sure, because if he becomes that guy, man, you're looking at some serious value, much like James Robinson was last year. So we'll see what happens. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let's move on to the next pick. This will be one of the more interesting players to watch this season, in my opinion. It's not that I don't like Zach Wilson. It's just that I think, in my opinion, it's going to be difficult for him to walk into an NFL locker room and command the respect of everyone in the room and to be a leader of men. I just think that that's going to be a little bit of a difficult transition for Zach Wilson. Reason number one, just look at him. Looks like he's 14. It's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be difficult for him to walk into a room full of grown-ass men and just, take control of that locker room. This is my team. This is what we're going to do. We're going to win football games, blah, blah, blah. I just think that he's going to have a tough time doing that. I really, really do. This Jets team is improving. I thought that they would have been better overall if they had hung on to Sam Darnold and done some different things with the roster that way. He does have a pretty solid offensive line, in my opinion, to work behind. Obviously, Mekhi Becton, last year's first round pick. Elijah Vera Tucker, they traded up and drafted as well. Another first round pick on the offensive line. And then Connor McGovern, Greg Van Roten, George Fant there, Chuma Odega, Alex Lewis, Dan Feeney, they got some guys in the offensive line, Cam Clark even eventually to keep them upright and hopefully be able to run the ball a lot more. I think if you look at his college career, last year was fantastic, 33 touchdowns, 3 picks, but the level of competition wasn't exactly, knocking down the doors of national championships type of a thing. And obviously his previous couple seasons before that were not as stellar. Injuries were there, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is going to lie somewhere in the middle there with Zach Wilson, in my opinion, and then making the leap to be the unquestioned starter in New York, plus the media. I just think it's going to be tough. I think he's going to have a bit of a rough year, and I might actually, I maybe should have given him more passing yards and less touchdowns, more picks maybe, or just less touchdowns. I could see him doing 14 touchdowns, 15 picks. He's going to run the ball a little bit. Not that he'll be, scrambling for his life. Like I said, that offensive line is pretty reasonable. It's just, that is part of his game. So he is going to run a little bit. They're going to be behind a lot of games. He does have decent wide receiver, depth. So I don't know. It's an interesting. I'll be very interested to look back on the stat line when the season's over. Obviously, there's 17 games now this year, so maybe again I was light, but it is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comments on Zach Wilson. He's going to be an interesting player to watch. Definitely you're going to draft him. Like, if you're the type of team or type of guy, you're in a deep 16 team type of a league, and you go the route of taking like 3 quarterbacks that you can just kind of cycle and play matchups with, he could be a guy that you pick up and start once or twice. I don't know, or even just a waiver wire guy in other leagues. In my leagues, no starting quarterback is unowned, period. They're just all owned. They're all on a roster. So if he is a waiver wire type of a guy, you might be able to spot start him once or twice throughout the season. So let me know what you think in the comments, but we'll move on to the next pick. Another Clemson wide receiver. I really like Clemson wide receivers, and the NFL seems to as well, because they are plug and play type of guys that can play right away. And history says that is a true statement. So at least recent history. Either way, I love the landing spot for Amari Rodgers. He looked great in the Senior Bowl, caught a touchdown, had a very good game. He's got the pedigree. I believe his dad was a quarterback in the NFL, from what I remember. T. Martin, I believe. So I really like the landing spot. It's going to be the first kind of slot receiver that the Packers have had since Randall Cobb, which makes it difficult to project how it kind of shakes out. I think that there's room for Aaron Rodgers to grow yards wise. Obviously 48 touchdowns, 5 picks, that's ridiculous, but he only had 4,300 yards. I think that there's room for him to grow on that number potentially. And then, some of the targets and yards that were gobbled up by, second, third tight end, Equanimeous St. Brown. I think those types of plays or yards, whatever you want to call it, and some of the running back dump offs type of stuff can go to Amari Rodgers. So I think that this is a reasonable stat line. Obviously, they still have Devontae Adams, who's one of, if not the best wide receiver in the game right now. Allen Lazard, big body, possession type of a receiver. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, field stretcher, deep threat type of a guy. And then Bob Tonyan still there. Running backs catch a fair amount of passes, but that's part of it. They lost Jamal Williams. AJ Dillon is less of a pass catching threat, I still think he's okay, and Aaron Jones is still there. He's going to basically, probably replicate his receiving stats, at least close to it from last year. So I think that there's room for him to have a role. I don't think he's going to just jump in and have, anywhere near the type of top level production that Randall Cobb had. At least not this season. I don't particularly think that he's going to have an extreme amount of dynasty value, depending on how deep your league is. I think that, again, as long as the team stays relatively the same, and all this is going to revolve around whether or not Aaron Rodgers is on the Packers this year. I think he is. You just do not move on. You do not trade. You do not trade Aaron Rodgers. Period. You do not. That's the stupidest thing you could do, Yeah, same thing with the whole Russell Wilson chatter. Even before the whole Deshaun Watson thing came out with him requesting a trade, you do not trade quarterbacks like that. You just do not, period. End of story. I don't want to hear it. So there you go. I expect Aaron Rodgers to be on the Packers this year. And I think that this is just a reasonable stat line. I think that that's pretty fair. I think that's probably close to what he ends up with, kind of no matter what. Even if there is an injury, I think another guy might step in, depending on how it shakes down, type of thing. So let me know what you think in the comments there, and we'll move on to the next pick in the second round. Here's another love the player. I don't hate the fit, but I think there could have been better fits, for Terrace Marshall to be, a wide receiver 2 on a given team. I don't hate the fit, and it's just that we're not really sure what we're going to get out of Sam Darnold in this offense. Obviously, he comes in, knows the offense. Joe Brady is the offensive coordinator from LSU, and Terrace Marshall is very, very underrated in my opinion. He just, not exactly buried on the depth chart in LSU. He just had, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson ahead of him in the pecking order. He still got his. He still had 671 yards and 13 touchdowns with Joe Burrow and Joe Brady in that championship year. And then when he gets a chance to be the guy, 100 plus yards and touchdown plus a game for LSU last year, an abbreviated season. Great, very good landing spot. I might have been a little light on my projection. I think I probably could have bumped him up into the 500 yard range there. Maybe a couple more touchdowns as well. But that's all going to revolve around how Sam Darnold fits in this offense and how well he picks it up, all that kind of stuff. I think at the very, very, very least, you've got to give him Teddy Bridgewater totals last year, 3,700 yards, 15 touchdowns, 11 picks. I think you have to give him at least that. I think he probably exceeds those totals. I think that Sam Darnold's a better quarterback than Teddy Bridgewater. I do, sue me. And And then we'll see. I think DJ Moore could potentially take a bit of a step forward. He was under the radar guy. Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore, both 1,000-yard receivers, which is pretty rare for a 3,700-yard, passing total. And then Curtis Samuel. Basically, those three wide receivers with Curtis Samuel and running backs, accounted for pretty much all of the production in the passing game for the Panthers last year. Could that happen again? I don't honestly particularly think so. David Moore comes in as well. Shi Smith, who I know they really liked, he had a very good Senior Bowl, played for a Matt Rule coach team in the Senior Bowl and had a very good game. Did they draft him? I can't remember. Either way, yeah, they drafted him I think in the 6th, I believe. But either way, they bring him in as well. Dan Arnold comes in. He had an underrated season for the Cardinals last year, and we'll see how he fits into this offense. But I think that's reasonable where I'm at. He could absolutely have a better season than I've projected. Absolutely. So you could take potential there, again, just because of the offense, not necessarily because of, the quarterback play and everything like, a Cornell Powell, but just because he knows the offense and you know that he can succeed in that offense, if that makes sense. That's kind of where I'm at with Terrace Marshall. I do really like him. I think, if you went to another team where there's more opportunity and less, competition for targets, I think that I would absolutely, project a higher, more impressive stat line than I have here. But I guess realistically, I do think you could get him over the 500-yard mark and add maybe 1 or 2 more touchdowns there and still be relatively conservative. And then again, based on health. So let me know what you think in the comments. I do really like Terrace Marshall. I like everything that the Panthers are doing as a team and a franchise. I think that they're going to be a very good team very soon. I really do. And maybe, push this year for I'm not going to say playoffs, but they're going to push this year and maybe get there next year. So we'll see what happens. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let's move on. Here's another love the player, don't necessarily love the fit. I was projecting, my mock draft had Elijah Moore going to the New Orleans Saints, and I think that would have been a much better landing spot for him, stats-wise and fantasy-wise and everything like that. I really, really like Elijah Moore. I really like him a lot. Ran a sub 4.4, 4.35, 40. Had an extremely good last year, junior season at Ole Miss. Averaged, 10 catches, a touchdown, and 120 yards, something like that, 100 plus yards. It was pretty run and gun type of an offense, which I don't necessarily think is going to translate to the Jets. Obviously, I think Zach Wilson is going to struggle a little bit, and we'll see when I get to his projections. But he is going to be the unquestioned starter day one, no questions asked. They don't even really have a capable backup. So if something were to happen to Zach Wilson, in all honesty, I might be a little lofty with this projection here. Corey Davis, Denzel Mims, Jamison Crowder as of right now. Keelan Cole comes in. They still got Braxton Berrios and a bunch of complimentary type guys. Vincent Smith, Jeff Smith, whatever. But I might be a bit lofty. Herndon's still there, so with the struggles that I think that they're going to have, but they're going to have to throw the ball. They're not going to be in a ton of ball games. So they're going to have to throw the ball. And I think Elijah Moore probably, he might be the most talented wide receiver on this team. Maybe, it's hard to say. There's a lot of good quality receivers here. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think that Zach Wilson's going to be able to, have a Justin Herbert type of a rookie season, or even, I don't know. So I just don't think he's going to set any records. That's for sure. I think that we'll see when we get to Zach Wilson, what I'm projecting there. Either way, I do really like Elijah Moore, and I think I would like him more in Dynasty. Obviously, I think I like him more next year. I don't suspect that Jamison Crowder is on this team. I didn't think he would still be on this team right now, if I'm being honest with you, just because of his contract, and they can save, 10.5 or something like that $1 million. I'm not sure if anything has changed since then, but at a point in time, they could have saved $10+ million just releasing Jamison Crowder. Not that I don't like Jamison Crowder. I think they should release him just because. It's just that I didn't like him enough to pay him that much money, especially considering Corey Davis, Denzel Mims, Elijah Moore. I digress. Let me know what you think in the comments. That's my projection for Elijah Moore. I don't think there's a ton of room to grow there unless there's some major injuries or Zach Wilson is better than I think he will be. So let me know what you think in the comments and we'll move on. So here's another one where I absolutely love the player. I absolutely love Kadarius Toney as a player. He was my guy coming into the draft. I just absolutely despise the landing spot. I really, really, really hate that he went to the Giants, if I'm being honest. Obviously, the biggest reason why Danny Dimes I don't think he's it, man. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be the quarterback of the future for the Giants. I don't think he's going to be, a Pro Bowler. Like, if I'm being honest, I unless it all changes this season, Daniel Dimes is Mitch Trubisky. Sorry, just is what it is. There's no excuses for him not to succeed. I think the offensive line is in a good enough spot, and he absolutely has the weapons. I just don't think he's going to pound through that door. I don't. Even if he does, the mouths to feed on this team are extreme. They obviously brought in Kenny Golladay, who is a huge free agent acquisition, very, very good receiver, very talented. They brought in Kyle Rudolph. Evan Ingram's still there. Darius Slayton has led this team in receiving both of his first 2 seasons, and he's moving into his third year wide receivers. You expect a bit of a step forward there. Sterling Shepard's still there. Saquon Barkley's back from injury. There's even if Daniel Dimes is, I'm trying to think of a comparison, even if he is Jared Goff, hopefully you hope he's better than that, but either way, even if he is the guy, there's just so many mouths to feed here. I think it was a terrible pick for the Giants, not because of the player, because I absolutely am a huge Kadarius Toney fan. I just wish he went pretty much anywhere else but here. But it is what it is. There's a stat line I've projected, 400 plus, a couple touchdowns. They're going to get him the ball in space. I don't think he returns punts or kicks or anything like that. I just don't see it for him. I think they want maybe punts, maybe punt returner, but I'm not too concerned about that if I'm being honest. I'm probably, looking at him. You got to look at him. He's a first round wide receiver. You got to take a look at him come draft season. It's just, it's tough to dole out that much capital in him, round pick wise, auction draft, dollar value wise. I don't know. It is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comments there. I hate the landing spot. Love the player. It's tough to see where he's going to go from here. He probably does play out of the slot, which is good, but I don't know. I don't see too much room to grow from that stat line there unless there's a couple injuries in the wide receiver room for the Giants. So let me know what you think, and we'll move on to the next player there. So we got a first round wide receiver, obviously deserves a look in all draft formats. Do I think that he's going to be really, a guy that you're going to want on your team? Not really. I think there's probably going to be 3, 4, 5 maybe weeks all season that he's a startable fantasy commodity, and that's nothing to do with Rashad Bateman, because he was one of my guys coming into the draft. I really like Rashad Bateman. I had him going to the Titans. I think he would have been a beast there. I maybe would have projected him to be 1,000-yard receiver with the Titans, at least close to it. Better stat line than I have him here with Baltimore. Run first team still. It's a big year for Greg Roman as the offensive coordinator of this team, I think. They're going to have to win some games with Lamar Jackson's arm, and that comes down to Lamar Jackson too. They're going to have to win some ball games on the arm of Lamar Jackson. Is he going to be able to do that? Is it going to happen? I'm not so sure. We'll see. So, the proof is in the pudding. We'll see if he gets there, kind of a thing. Nothing particularly changes with this offense. There's nothing really that came in. Josh Oliver came in at tight end. I think that he's an upgraded pass catcher from what they had previously. There's just a ton of weapons. There's a lot of mouths to feed, believe it or not. It might not really particularly seem like it, but Hollywood Brown is still, kind of the wide receiver one. You you might want to put Bateman there, to be honest with you. But Mark Andrews still going to get his touches. Miles Boykin's still improving, and big body guy, red zone type of a threat. Devin Duvernay did some good things last year, so I basically took a look at Willie Snead's stat line. I don't think that there's a crazy, well, I do think there is some room for Lamar Jackson. So basically, if Lamar Jackson takes that next step as a passer in the NFL, then Bateman's stat line will follow. So I guess this is probably my floor for Bateman. So, and there is, the ceiling is quite a bit higher than this. The ceiling is probably, in my opinion, right around that 800-yard mark. 6 touchdowns sort of a thing is his ceiling, in my opinion. 50 catches roughly is the ceiling. So you could draft him on that, and I wouldn't fault you for it. I'm probably personally drafting him on his floor, which is what I think I have here. You could maybe peel off a touchdown potentially there as well. So there you go. And it's not that I don't like Rashad Bateman. It's just that I'm not sure not only about Lamar Jackson as a passer, but also Greg Roman as a play caller. That's just what it is. So let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll move on to the next pick. Bears are an interesting team. They are stuck in a vicious cycle of mediocrity right now. It just is what it is. 8-8 the past 2 seasons. And I don't think that there's any real room to grow from that this year. I do think that Justin Fields is the starter from week 1. I don't think that there's any real point in starting Andy Dalton or Nick Foles at all this year, unless you have to, injury or he's just not getting it done type of thing. There's no point. Why bother, starting a guy that exactly who and what he is and exactly what he can do. You might as well go with a guy who can be head and shoulders better than those two. You know what I mean? Realistically, it's unknown. So for me, I projected like Justin Fields is starting every game this year. I think he has a reasonable year, rookie year, 25 touchdowns. It's not bad for a rookie, to be honest with you. More touchdowns than picks. I think they've probably finished right around, 8-9, 9-8. If they have 10 wins, I think that's an extremely good year, to be honest, for the Bears this year. There's still lots of holes on that roster, but he's got a reasonable offensive line to play behind. Tevin Jenkins is another rookie, comes in. Obviously, James Daniels is very good. Cody Whitehair is pretty good. Larry Borom, they drafted as well. Cole Kmet, Jimmy Graham, Allen Robinson, obviously. A-Rob's very underrated still. Darnell Mooney, I was too hard on last year as a rookie, and he is a very good wide receiver in my opinion. They could use some help at the running back position, but we'll see how that all shakes out. Damian Williams is coming in as well. So again, I think the Bears are going to be stuck in mediocrity. It just kind of is what it is. Doesn't matter who their quarterback is, but I think Justin Fields gives them a better chance to win ball games than, either of the other two quarterbacks. Head and shoulders, he gives them a better chance because he can run the ball a little bit, scramble, do what he's got to do. I think that it makes the most sense to start Justin Fields week 1, every game, let him play, see what happens, move on from there, and then at least what you got after that. And he's going to be the guy on this team for the next 4 years minimum. So let him play, see what he's got, take it from there. That's what it is with Justin Fields. Let me know what you think in the comments. We're going to move on. With the first pick in the second round, we've got Rondale Moore of the Arizona Cardinals, second round pick. Ran a sub 4.3, 4.29. College production was pretty impressive, especially in his true freshman year, and then 3 games last year in a kind of pandemic-riddled season. But yeah, the stats are there, the production is there, the speed is there, the attributes are there. It's just a matter of landing spot. It was a little... it's not going to lend a crazy amount of production in his rookie season, I don't think. Nuke Hopkins last year received roughly a third of Kyler Murray's completions, and I expect that to probably continue this season, I should say. This isn't exactly like a run first team at all. It's just that, Kyler Murray will just, go off script, take off and run 5 yards type of a thing, in undesigned running plays for the quarterback. That's just what he does. And, that eats into, potential, passing, if you will. They still have Andy Isabella, who I expect to take a bit of a step forward. Obviously, he'll still take, in my opinion, he'll still take a back seat to Rondale Moore. I think Rondale Moore will probably be the primary slot receiver for the Cardinals. I think Nuke Hopkins and Christian Kirk probably start on the outside. I don't think AJ Green's going to come in and be, a starter if you're, 100 target type of guy. It's not going to happen. So I think a guy like AJ Green could come in and, have a stat line similar to Larry Fitz. And I think that there's going to be room. I just think that there's going to be room for Isabella to grow, as well as Rondale Moore. Keyshawn Johnson's still there as well. He's not like a huge household name, and he's not going to blow anybody away, but he gets on the field and he makes plays, and he's not... he is a rosterable player on this team type of thing. Like he's a very good wide receiver 5 is what I'm kind of getting at here. Either way, the bottom line is there's just not a crazy amount of volume to go around with a fair amount of mouths to feed while everybody's healthy. If anything should happen to any of these wide receivers, then you can bump up other guys here or there, depending on who gets injured type of a thing. I think that there's definitely some value in the return game for a guy that can run a sub 4.3 and is, 5'7", can get between the blockers type of a thing. He's tough to kind of see, if I'm being honest. Same thing with Tutu Atwell, They can get down. They're short guys and get down and kind of, water bug their way through. So I think that there's definitely value. I'm not sure he becomes the punt returner on this team. I think Chase Edmonds, who returned 18 kickoffs last year, was their primary kick returner. I think he plays too much on offense to have that role. I don't think you want him in that role, especially if James Conner, who will likely get hurt. I'm sorry, but it always happens. It happens every year. It's unfortunate that James Conner gets hurt. It happens. And I think Chase Edmonds is going to be basically that starting running back for this team, and he plays a lot in the passing game. So I think you take him off returning kicks. I think Rondale Moore can step right in there and definitely excel and potentially push to be a Pro Bowl returner. But he's going to play enough on offense too, where he's going to be rosterable 100%. He's going to be a reasonable guy to have in a return yard league. I think he's going to be drafted and kept on a roster for probably the whole season. If somebody drops him, I'm going to look to pick him up. I'll tell you that. I get points for returns, obviously, so that's going to add some value. If you got 800, 900,000 all-purpose yards out of a guy like that, sprinkle in a few touchdowns, that's definitely going to be rosterable. So that's what I think he does. I think you could potentially still have Christian Kirk, who returned punts last year. He could still return punts this year. Andy Isabella might move into that role. That's why I don't particularly think that Rondale Moore returns punts. He absolutely could. We could absolutely see him do that. But, we'll see what happens. As it sits right now, this is kind of the stat line that I'm projecting for Rondale Moore. I think it's very, very solid, and definitely rosterable in fantasy leagues. So let me know what you think in the comments. Let's move on to the first round. There's definitely some room to grow on this stat projection for Amon-Ra St. Brown, little brother of Equanimeous St. Brown of the Packers. Just because there's no one else that's any good on this team, if I'm being honest. The Lions wide receiver room is pretty lackluster. Brashad Perriman, Tyrell Williams, Quintez Cephas, Victor Bolden, Khalif Raymond, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think it's very, very, possible that he's the best wide receiver on this team. I think that's very possible. I think he plays the slot. And judging by Jared Goff's, willingness to throw to the slot, there's some stats that are pretty ridiculous as far as slot receivers are concerned with Jared Goff throwing the ball. So there's definitely room to grow from here. I think, 70 plus catches, 700 plus, I don't see much more than 10 yards per reception for, maybe Rashad Perriman, but pretty much any receiver in this offense. And, Anthony Lynn coming in as the OC, kind of look at, Keenan Allen, what he did with the Chargers. Obviously, I do not think that St. Brown is anywhere near the wide receiver that Keenan Allen is, anywhere near. But, if he's even, B plus of Keenan Allen, he could, have a serviceable career type of a thing. And I think he does, starts right away out of the slot, might be the best receiver on this team. It's going to be a tough year for the Lions, I think. I don't think they win a ton of ball games, and they might end up throwing the ball, but, check down Goff type of thing. I think he's going to, I think they'll run the ball a lot and be dumping it off to running backs, slot receivers, TJ Hawkinson, that sort of a thing. Sneaky, really good offensive line on this team, by the way. So moving forward, I think that they have some things to build on, very, very much so. Once they get some wide receivers and a better quarterback, I think that the Lions, they need some help on defense too, but I think the Lions are moving in the right direction anyways. So there you go. Let me know what you think about Amon-Ra. Moving on to the next pick. Man, I struggled with the stat projection for Kyle Pitts. Absolutely. He was the last guy that I did, I put out the numbers for. Is there more, is this light? Maybe. It's a touch conservative, I'll admit. Especially, it sounds like Julio Jones is leaving. That's part of the reason why I waited so long. If he was 100% gone, and I know he's gone, then it might have changed some things. It does sound like he's gone regardless. He is leaving. I get that. So I maybe am a little conservative with my stat projection here. It's just the, rookie tight ends do not produce as much as you'd think. It just doesn't happen. Is there any other rookie tight end that's like Kyle Pitts? Not really. So, he could absolutely eclipse that 900, maybe even 1,000, yard receiver type of thing without Julio there. They do still have Hayden Hurst, obviously. Calvin Ridley becomes wide receiver 1. But the way that they run this offense, and maybe that offense changes, with Arthur Smith, but, the running backs aren't really there to accommodate that. So I think they're going to have to stick with a similar style of an offense. And to like another kind of factor with maybe I am a little light here on my projection, and maybe I should bump it up, and, I should be going on either way. I think I got a little light, but he played in a fairly similar style offense in college, 770 yards, 12 touchdowns in only 8 games at Florida last year. And, I think what they will do with Julio gone, you can split him out wide, have him and Hayden Hurst on the field a lot, almost all the time, split him out wide, get him one-on-one. He's 6'6", around a 4.44. Like, that's crazy. 6'6", 240, 4.4 speed. That's like pushed, like border right there with Megatron a little bit. Like, it's pretty close to Megatron. He's a beast. Dude's a beast. I really, 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 really like Kyle Pitts a lot. I liked him so much that I wanted him to be a Bengal extremely badly. Obviously, he went one pick before the Bengals picked, and I'm not sure they would have taken him anyways. But here we are. I think I might have been a little light on my stat projection. I think you can boost it up a little bit, given the fact that I do think that Julio Jones is gone. I think 700 plus, maybe 8 touchdowns is kind of what we're looking at here. So you could probably bump him up to 10th overall, 9th maybe, sort of thing. Maybe even higher, because tight end's a premium position. Sorry, it's not a premium position. It's tough to find like extreme value at tight end. There's only, 5 or 6 tight ends that are, clear cut, start every week. Maybe even not even, depending on your league settings and whatnot. So either way, let me know what you think in the comments. That's what I have projected for Kyle Pitts, but I do think that there is some room there. I think that I might have been light. But either way, let me know what you think in the comments. We'll move on to the next pick. This one might come as a bit of a surprise to some. Dez Fitzpatrick's my guy. He's my guy this year. He's the guy that I'm going to be looking to, sleeper, steal, that sort of a thing. Titans obviously lost Corey Davis as well as Jonnu Smith in the passing game, and realistically didn't do much to, Josh Reynolds I do really like, and Anthony Ferkser takes over and, should be just fine, but they're going to need somebody to step in and potentially, start at wide receiver. And I think Dez Fitzpatrick is that guy. I like him a lot. He had a very, very good Senior Bowl game. 6'2", 210, ran a 4.43, got the measurables. He played in basically a run type of first, played with Lamar Jackson in his freshman season, had 700 yards, 7 touchdowns. I think that this, his stat line in college is under the radar, and I think his true value is somewhat unknown, but I think that it's much higher than he played at in college. Unless the Titans go out and trade for Julio Jones, I think that the opportunity will be there for him to succeed. And I think that stat line could even take a bit of a bump if all things remain the same right now. I think that stat line could get a bump. I'm definitely targeting. I'm definitely targeting Dez Fitzpatrick fairly highly on my rookie type of rankings. Obviously 1.10 10th overall pick in my rookie draft type of thing. And again, I think that there's room to grow on these numbers. So there you go. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think I might get some heat, maybe not, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. It's just how I'm projecting it for him. So give me a shout, let me know what you think. Let's move on to the next pick. I very, very, very much like Trevor Lawrence a lot. He's obviously, I personally think that he's quite a bit the best quarterback in this draft class. I personally think that. I think that it's not particularly close that he's the number one quarterback in this year. We'll see what Trey Lance ends up doing in his career. But either way, I do think that the Jags are a better team with Trevor Lawrence for sure. I mean, with Travis Etienne coming in as well, and the defense getting a boost, definitely they're going to be a better team. To me, they weren't a 1-win roster last year. So now that they're better, in my opinion, I think that I don't think they push for the playoffs or anything quite yet, but they're definitely moving towards that being, not only the goal, but the expectation, if I'm being honest. I definitely like the receiving options that he has, DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault. And then, bringing a veteran like Marvin Jones is a fantastic idea. Travis Etienne, James Robinson, and then even a guy like Colin Johnson, I really like. So he's definitely got the weapons. Offensive line is in an okay spot. It's not like, I would probably put it right in the middle as far as the league is concerned. Defense is in a fairly good spot, in my opinion. So I look at Trevor Lawrence similar to how Baker Mayfield was in his rookie year. I think Baker kind of, I don't know, he that was one of his better years. It's weird. It's just I think that Lawrence is going to come in and have a similar type of a season. I think that I projected him, kind of in the middle of his potential. I think his ceiling is quite a bit higher. His ceiling is probably, pushing a little closer to 30 touchdowns passing, maybe 1 or 2 more rushing touchdowns sort of a thing. Maybe more, like maybe, potential Justin Herbert type of a rookie year. That's possible. Very possible. I just think that the receiving options for the Chargers were just a little bit better all around than the Jags have this year. Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry, I hold in fairly high regard, especially Keenan Allen. So, I think that there is room to grow here. I think you can draft him as a, QB 1B type of a thing. Like, I think that he will be serviceable in a lot of games, especially considering matchups, depending on, who they're playing. I think they play the Bengals, maybe the Jets, that sort of a thing. I think he's absolutely startable in those games. But yeah, 25 touchdowns, 28 total touchdowns, puts him pretty high up there as far as, rookie seasons are concerned at the quarterback position. So it's not like I projected him to, not have a good year. That's for sure. I think that Jags win maybe, six games, something like that, 6, 7 games. Obviously improve and look very good offensively. That's how I think they're going to look, and defensively, to be honest with you. So I think there's tons to like for the Jags. Dynasty, I think you put him near the top of your list. I think he gets a boost. He's the 9th overall. This is kind of an amalgamation of redraft and dynasty. But if you're strictly talking about dynasty, you can bump him up the list for sure. Super flex leagues as well, obviously. Chuck a bunch up the list. So there you go. Let me know what you think in the comments about Trevor Lawrence and his rookie season, my stat projections, everything that you think about the Jags. We'll move on to the next pick, number 8. This is a guy that I really, really loved his play in the Senior Bowl. He was fantastic in that game. Really, really good. He had 2 solid, super solid back-to-back seasons. Obviously, one of 2,000-yard rushers for the Tar Heels last year. Led college football in average per carry with 8. Had 1,003 yards in 2019, 1,245 last year, 12 total touchdowns in those 2 seasons, and then 1,000 total yards the 2 years before that. 500 per season plus. Can catch the ball in the backfield. I think that I really, really liked him, and I wanted him to be a Bengal personally. I thought he would fit in very, very well in the Gio Bernard type of a role, and potential change of pace guy. In New York, I'm not sure how, if he is the number 1 guy and he's the unquestioned number 1 running back on this team, then you can definitely bump up the stat line a little bit. I think he's going to get his reps no matter what. I think that what I like about him is I think that he can be the guy that just takes a stranglehold of that position. He just, similar to a James Robinson last year, and what I was saying about Javian Hawkins type of thing, where he just, demands that you keep him on the field, and there's nothing you can do about it. Even if, you want to get other guys reps, how do you take them off the field? Like, make them, not be able to take you off the field, period. And I think that he can do that for this team. He can be that guy. I really do. So we'll see. They brought in Tevin Coleman, lost Frank Gore, which is fine. They bring in Tevin Coleman, who I think is kind of a bit of a safety blanket for Bob Saleh. He knows him, knows who he is, knows the offense, all that kind of stuff. So Tevin Coleman's definitely a good addition to this backfield, and I think he'll get his reps as well. LaMichael Pirines obviously still there, and Ty Johnson, Josh Adams are still in the room type of thing. I think Zach Wilson's going to have to hand the ball off a fair amount. I don't think the Jets are going to push for playoffs, nothing like that. They're going to be a losing team for sure. But we'll see. And I'm drafting Michael Carter on his potential. If I'm being honest, that's just what I'm doing. I'm drafting him. Honestly, I'm drafting him at his ceiling. I really am. And I think that this stat line is relatively close to what his ceiling would be. I think in Dynasty, you can give him a bump up. I think running backs in this offense should get their opportunities. And again, if I'm right about the type of player that I think Michael Carter is, I think that this could be a good season, a good rookie season for him. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments on that, and we'll move on to the next pick. So here's a guy that a lot of people had as their wide receiver 1, and I can see why. I can see why you'd have him there. I personally didn't. But 6th overall selection, 2nd wide receiver taken off the board this year. I think that if he went to another team, had a better landing spot type of a thing, better quarterback, better, a lot of factors are playing into him being, so low. Some people might say that this is, crazy low for Waddle, and the stat projection is crazy. I don't know. We'll see what the pundits say when everybody sees this, and let me know what you think in the comments there. But I just don't think that there's going to be that much opportunity for him to come in and be a 1,000-yard receiver. I just don't see it. Will Fuller comes in as well. I think Lynn Bowden is still very underrated and could do a lot of things on this team, on any team, and this team obviously because it's the one he plays for. Devontae Parker's still there. Mike Gesicki, Hunter Long comes in. Miles Gaskin, Malcolm Brown comes in. Jared Dokes, Salvin Ahmed. So I just don't think that there's going to be that much opportunity. I think that this is right around where he will be. The ceiling isn't much higher than this, but neither is the floor. So, that in my opinion. So that's why I have him kind of projected here. I think that there's a very, very good potential that he is the number one, the best wide receiver on this team. I do think that that's very, very possible and probably true. It's just, I don't think that, there's going to be enough to go around where anybody on this team is a 1,000-yard receiver. I think they are a game management type of an offense a little bit. Defense, is going to win this team games. And then, as long as Tua improves and progresses the way that he should and probably will, moving forward in a dynasty type of a format, you could maybe bump Waddle up a little bit, a couple spots. I think that the other guys that are ahead of him are probably, still in a better spot moving forward dynasty wise. But, if Will Fuller ends up kind of leaving this team or Paul Parker, then, you could bump up Waddle. So, if you really like him, obviously I get it, but that's just where I have him projected. So let me know what you think in the comments, what your projection would be for Waddle. Do you think he's a 1,000-yard receiver? What would that take? What kind of a season would that take out of Tua to make Waddle a 1,000-yard receiver, if that makes sense? So there you go. There's your breakdown for number 7, Jalen Waddle. Let's move on to number 6. So I'm happy I didn't project Trey Sermon's stat line until the Jeff Wilson injury occurred, which I'm thankful for because it would have been worthless. Obviously, it changes things. There's a lot of people on Twitter saying some nonsense like, "Oh, Jeff Wilson's injury doesn't change anything for." Yes, it does. Stop. It absolutely, absolutely does. Don't even try to act like Trey Sermon would do the exact same thing with Jeff Wilson on the roster for all of a sudden. It's not going to happen. Okay, so it absolutely changes things and, bumps Trey Sermon up this board quite a bit. I think that, Mostert will still get his touches, and they did bring in Wayne Gallman, but I think Trey Sermon, might be the most talented running back on this team. Even when Jeff Wilson was around, I'll still say that, but it's just, they're not going to give all these carries to Sermon instead of Wilson, whatever. It definitely changes things. Sermon has looked, he's been a bit of he has his like pedigree and his stats in college aren't crazy, but if you watch him in certain kind of games, he had 331 rushing yards against Northwestern. Like, that's crazy. 331 rush yards, 2 touchdowns. Pretty impressive. And then in the Clemson game in the college football playoffs where they won and looked great, he looked fantastic. He basically carried the team, in my opinion. He was the MVP of that game type of thing. 31 carries, 193 yards, 4 catches, 61 yards. It was a very, very, very impressive game. And basically, I think that game is the one that got him drafted so high and put him on a lot of teams' radar. Again, considering, previous production and, previous stat line, I suppose. Big body guy, 6 feet tall, 210, 15 plus pounds, pushing 220, maybe around a 4.58. He's a big body guy. He can take a pounding. And I think, he basically becomes a 1A, 1B type of guy to, Raheem Mostert as long as he stays healthy. But, anytime he's playing, he's going to get his touches as well. Obviously they run their offense a lot through the running backs and not necessarily through the running backs, but a lot of play action and a lot of dump offs type of thing. That they're going to get their production, basically, is what I'm getting at, in the passing game as well. So I definitely like Trey Sermon a fair amount. Dynasty, redrafts, everything. I think unless you're playing like a 10, maybe 12 team league, he's at the very least an RB2 and a flex option type of a guy. He might even be a start every week type of a guy in a deep league, in a league type of league I'm in. He might be a start every week kind of a guy. So we'll see. Let me know what you think in the comments on his production and the stat line that I have projected for Trey Sermon. Let's move on to the next pick. So I thought this was a great pick for the Broncos. Obviously, they let Phillip Lindsay walk. Michael Boone comes in from the Vikings, and Royce Freeman is still there, as well as the kind of incumbent starter Melvin Gordon. But there's going to be room. They basically run a two-headed type of a backfield like they did when Phillip Lindsay was healthy last year. They're not quite split down the middle. Obviously, more carries went to Melvin Gordon than Phillip Lindsay, but Phillip Lindsay had, double-digit touches total last year just in the running game. He had 11 carries per game type of a thing in the games that he played. Obviously only had the one touchdown, which I think, will be a little more evenly distributed between Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. I think that there's a very, very, very good potential that Javonte Williams is the best running back on the Denver Broncos this year. I'm not exactly sold on Melvin Gordon being just a phenomenal running back. And I think the potential for Williams is absolutely there, and he's going to get an opportunity to contribute, at the very least to contribute. You know what I mean? Potentially they're just a quarterback away from being a playoff team, the Broncos, in my opinion. I think they were really hoping Ja'Wuan James was going to be able to play this year and be the right tackle that they want him to be. Obviously, that didn't work out. They brought in Bobby Massey. Cam Fleming is there as well, who might end up being the starter. Other than that right tackle spot, they got a pretty good offensive line, and they added Quinn Miners as well in the draft. So I'm pretty happy with the way that their offensive line looks. They've got enough weapons, absolutely, on the outside and at tight end to not have, stuffed boxes for both running backs. And like I said, Javonte Williams is gonna get his opportunities. And judging off of his college career and his college resume, he's gonna succeed. Is kind of how it looks to me. So I've got him pretty high personally. Obviously, 5th overall as a rookie. I think that there's potential that he's a start every week type of a running back. And, he could, with a potential injury or something like that to Melvin Gordon, he becomes RB1 on this team. So it's an interesting spot. It was a great spot for him to go, a great spot for him to be able to contribute and to be at the very least a flex starter, I think, in his rookie year. So let me know what you think about Williams in the comments there. He's your 5th overall selection. Let's move on to number 4. Really like the potential for Ja'Marr Chase this year. I really, really do. I think that this is pretty much the median, halfway between his floor and ceiling type of a thing. I think his ceiling is probably like 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns. I think that's the ceiling for Ja'Marr Chase this year. I really, really do. And his floor is probably not much peeled off from here. So kind of in the middle, but a little on the low side. There's going to be some targets opening up. Gio Bernard is gone. AJ Green is gone. So I think that Chase, obviously with the rapport with Joe Burrow from college, and their college stats were obviously ridiculous. Go take a look if you need to. I think if he does eat into anyone's kind of production and targets, it's going to be Tyler Boyd and not T. Higgins. Personally, that's how I see it. As a Bengals fan as well, I think Tyler Boyd's going to end up similar to where he was last year, 840 yards, 4 touchdowns, 79 catches. I think that Tyler Boyd ends up right around there, which is absolutely fine, and he's absolutely a fantasy commodity as well. 3 wide receivers last year had 100 plus targets: AJ Green, Boyd, and Higgins. Obviously, I think Higgins, could take a step forward as well. Yeah, I think the Bengals, I don't expect that the Bengals, go to the playoffs. I'm a Bengals fan, if you don't know. I don't suspect that the Bengals go to the playoffs, but I think moving forward next season, I'm personally going to be looking towards that being a possibility. I do think there's a potential where they have 3 wide receivers that, push towards that 1,000-yard mark, similar to obviously, the parallels are there, similar to the Carolina Panthers, where they had 3 wide receivers that were pushing that 1,000-yard threshold type of thing. And I think that that's what happens this year. Sounds like Joe Burrow is fully healthy heading into the season, will be fully healthy heading into the season. Will be playing from week 1 on. The offensive line has improved a fair amount, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of differing opinions on that one, but I think that they're going to be okay and better than last year. That's for sure. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. I think this is, the median. Like I said, if you want to draft Chase higher, you absolutely could, and I wouldn't fault you for it. Fourth overall in a rookie draft, I think is pretty high up there, and I think that there's potential to grow. So there you go. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll move on. I personally really, really, really like Travis Etienne. I didn't love the landing spot just because I really like James Robinson. But you can't deny the type of player Travis Etienne is. It's actually relatively shocking that he got drafted in the first round. You would have thought that his season, where he kind of digressed a little bit, might have pushed him out of that first round, territory, where if he came out as a junior, he would have been a first round pick, in my opinion, no question. 2,000 plus yards total passing, receiving, or rushing and receiving, 23 touchdowns, 26 touchdowns a year previous. I think he would have been a first round pick pretty much no matter what. And I really, really, really like him. And I think it's going to be frustrating at times with this running back combination, J-Rob and Travis Etienne, obviously. But I think that there will be enough for both of them to be, flex, at least, like flex starters. So I think they'll have value on their own. It's just going to be frustrating at times is all I got for you guys. Like, that's all I got for you. It's like any other, running back by committee type of an offense. But realistically, I think it's these two guys. I think it's James Robinson and Travis Etienne. I think Carlos Hyde is just going to be kind of an afterthought, as well as Dare Ogunbowale. I think they're both going to be afterthoughts in this offense. It's going to be interesting to see how much Travis Etienne contributes in the passing game. He caught 48 balls last year, 37 the year prior. Was working as a wide receiver. A lot of people are projecting him to be a Percy Harvin type in this offense for Urban Meyer and Darrell Bevell. It's going to be interesting to see where he falls. But regardless of how it all shakes out, I think that Etienne is absolutely one of the top rookies to be targeting this year. I just think that the ability in the passing game. Not that James Robinson doesn't have it, that's for sure. He caught, I think, 49 balls last year. It's just, I think Etienne is going to be a little bit better, and they might be on the field at the same time, So I think that they'll both have value is kind of what I'm getting at. So, yeah, Travis Etienne, there's a stat line there. Looks pretty good. Total, he'll push the 1,000-yard total, push 10 touchdowns total, sort of a thing, which puts him up there. So, yeah, again, especially if you're in a PPR league, I think he's going to be one of the top rookies to target. I have him 3rd overall, obviously. So there you go. Let me know what you think in the comments about Travis Etienne and the Jacksonville Jaguars offense and the situation with James Robinson. Let me know what you think about it. But that's kind of my take on it and my stat projection that I have for Travis Etienne. So let's move on to number 2. There's a lot of places that Smith could have went when I would have had him, here as well. I think that he walks into that wide receiver room in Philly and is immediately the best wide receiver on the team, in my opinion. I absolutely hated the Jalen Reagor pick last year for the Eagles. Maybe he works out and he has a good second year and, he ends up having a fantastic career. I didn't necessarily, I don't necessarily not like Jalen Reagor as a player. It's just there was way better options at the time. I think they got it right here. They took a guy that, in my opinion, I had Devontae Smith as the number 1 wide receiver in this draft. I'm not trying to get cute with my rankings. He was the number 1 wide receiver for me. That's just what it is. So, and he goes to probably the best place. I didn't mean up there anyways, one of the better places that any wide receiver could have gone. So, wide receiver number one probably plays out of the slot. Probably they'll probably move him around. They're going to get the ball in his hands. He's going to get his targets. I've got him projected to be the only wide receiver over 1,000 yards this year. Who knows if Zach Ertz is still there come start of the season? There's a very good possibility he gets traded. Dallas Goedert, obviously. And then basically it's going to depend on what Jalen Hurts looks like this year. I think he's definitely going to be the guy 100% this year. There's no questions asked. There's allegedly some talks about Joe Flacco being the starter there, but everybody I think knows, including Joe Flacco, that it's going to be Jalen Hurts' team. And you got to see what you got with the kid. Supposedly everybody likes him. The players respect him, everything like that. He had a good college career. I really liked Jalen Hurts coming into the league. I didn't like him going here because I thought Carson Wentz would still be the guy, but here we are. So, it's time for Jalen Hurts to kind of put up or shut up. We're going to see what he can do. New coaching staff. Nick Sirianni comes in with Shane Steichen. So we'll see. We'll see what the Eagles look like on offense this year. I think the opportunity is the biggest thing for Smith. I think it's just there's too much opportunity for him to succeed, and get the ball in his hands and let the kid go. So I'm gonna target him extremely highly. Obviously, I have him as a second overall selection. And I think it's just opportunity that's going to allow him to succeed. So let me know what you think in the comments about Devontae Smith and the Eagles. I've got him number 2. I'm going to have him very high on my list for rookie rankings and come draft season. So like I said, let me know what you think in the comments. Let's move on to the number 1 overall selection. So your first overall top rookie selection, in my opinion, and probably a fair amount of people's opinion, running back Najee Harris from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm a massive Najee Harris fan, massive Najee Harris guy personally. 6'1", 230, ran a 4.45. Stats last year were through the roof. 30 touchdowns, 1,900 yards total, caught 43 passes. Like, dude can do it all. He's a 3-down back. He's a workhorse. He's going to be the number 1 selection in any kind of a rookie draft or, whatever you want to. He's probably a first round pick in any redraft league, realistically, if that stat line rings true, which I think it probably will. The only way I would have liked him more, I guess that's kind of where I'm at. Like, could his ceiling be higher than this? Absolutely. Absolutely. He could build off of those rushing yards, receiving yards, especially, maybe catch a couple more balls, a couple more total touchdowns. I think I'm fairly conservative, if I'm being honest with you. But the reason why is because they really didn't attack that offensive line in the draft or in free agency for that matter. I think that if they had, I would probably, give them a few more everything, if I'm being honest. So, and, who knows, maybe that offensive line is what they think it is, or, they think that everybody's going to progress to the point where, they know what they have. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but I'm not sure that that's, I'm not sure that that's true. So I'm not willing to just, go out on a limb and just believe that the Steelers are going to have a fantastic offensive line and, Najee Harris is going to break records. Potential. I mean, I do think that he's definitely the front runner to be offensive rookie of the year. I don't think that's breaking any, ground over here, but, I'm a huge fan of Najee Harris. I think he landed in a great spot. I think a lot of teams would have been a great spot, but I think he's the unquestioned everything as far as the running back position is concerned for the Steelers. So there you go. That's it. There's your draft. Let me know what you think in the comments about every pick. I appreciate the watch. If you could hit that like and subscribe button on your way out, that would be awesome. It really helped my channel. I'm hoping to grow it as much as possible. I got a ton of football content on the channel, so take a look through it. As always, the motto for Off the Schneid is, if you're afraid to be wrong, you'll never be right. So there you go. There's my predictions, and I'm gonna die on the hill that I've climbed with you guys on all these picks. So, like I said, share your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for the watch. We'll see you next time.